Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're exploring the life of someone truly extraordinary, an actor who felt like both an old soul and a supernova, River Phoenix.
An incredible talent, definitely. His life was so compressed, so intense.
Exactly. Born in 1970, a global star practically overnight, and then tragically gone at just 23. It's a story that still resonates. And our focus today really is that duality in him. You have this profoundly unconventional, almost chaotic upbringing, fueling this incredibly intense artistic output and this really deep radical activism. But then there was this hidden struggle underneath it all.
That paradox is key, absolutely. To understand River Phoenix, you have to look at both sides, the light and the shadow. So our sources for this, they cover a lot of ground biographies, film analysis, first-hand accounts from people who knew him, and of course the known facts about his death.
Right.
The mission here is to kind of unpack the pressures he was under, both internal and external, and how his deeply held values shaped everything, his whole tragically short life.
Let's start right at the beginning of that, because even his name tells a story, doesn't it? River Jude Bottom.
It really does. His parents, Arlen and John, were definitely products of the counterculture. River came from Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, the River of Life idea.
Okay.
And Jude was from the Beatles' Hey Jude, classic 60s, 70s influences there.
And the bottom part.
That was their original surname. They changed it later, after a really difficult period, to Phoenix.
Phoenix, right. Symbolizing rebirth. Rising from the ashes.
Exactly. A very deliberate choice, trying to signify a new beginning after what sounds like a truly harrowing early life.
Yeah, the sources paint a picture of just constant movement, real instability, poverty.
Like completely itinerant. It wasn't just moving towns. We're talking moving constantly across countries, everything.
Yeah.
The sources say over 40 times before he was even 18.
40 times? That's staggering.
It is. River himself called it a desperate situation. They often had no money. He and his sister Lane would sing on street corners.
Just to get by. For food and money.
Yeah, literally busking to survive. It was a constant scramble.
So what did that mean for things like school, formal education?
Well, basically non-existent. He never went to a traditional school.
Really?
None at all.
Nope. Screenwriter Naomi Foner described him as totally without education in that formal sense. He lacked that grounding in history, literature, the usual stuff.
But he was clearly intelligent.
Oh, incredibly bright, very curious. He taught himself to read and write, but there was no structure, no foundation there. Some people think that lack of security, financially and academically, maybe fueled his later search for certainty, for truth.
That makes sense.
And there's also a claim later from filmmaker George Sluizer that River was dyslexic. If true, in a normal school system, he might have gotten help, but, well, he wasn't in one.
Wow. So this chaotic search for meaning, for stability, it leads his parents somewhere controversial, doesn't it? The Children of God.
Yes. In 1973, when River was just 3, the family joined the Children of God cult. They moved to Caracas, Venezuela.
Working as missionaries. Missionaries and fruit gatherers living within the cult system. They were in it for about 4 years, from when he was 3 until he was 7. And this period, it's linked to some incredibly disturbing claims later on.
Yeah, the sources mention some really difficult things reported from that time. What do they actually say?
There was a big Vanity Fair piece that brought some of it to light, alleging he was raped at age 4 within the cult. Phoenix himself, in a 1991 Details interview, said he lost his virginity at 4 to other children in the cult. He also said he'd sort of blocked out the memory, which suggests, well, profound trauma.
It's horrifying to even consider. But then his brother Joaquin offered a different perspective years later, didn't he?
He did, yeah. And it really complicates how we understand River's relationship with the press digging into his past. In 2019, Joaquin claimed River was actually joking about the sexual trauma stuff.
Joking? Why?
Joaquin said River was just so tired of being asked ridiculous questions by the press that he made it up to mess with them, basically.
Huh. So it's unclear whether it was trauma or a defense mechanism against intrusion.
Exactly. It's hard to know for sure. But what is clear is that the family's time in the cult deeply affected them. They left in '77, completely disillusioned. River later called the group disgusting in an Esquire interview, said they were ruining people's lives.
So leaving the cult was the catalyst for the name change. The Phoenix rebirth.
That seems to be the timing, yes. Fleeing that past, trying to start fresh.
Okay, so the Phoenix family escapes the cult. They come back to the U.S., end up in L.A., still struggling, right? Still busking.
Yeah, back to singing on street corners in Westwood for spare change. But this time, it leads to that classic Hollywood discovery moment.
How'd that happen?
Talent agent Iris Burton saw River, Joaquin, Rain, and Summer singing together. She was apparently just blown away by their charisma, their look, their sound.
And she signed them all.
Signed all 4 kids right there. It basically launched their careers almost instantly.
From the street corner to the commercials.
Pretty much. He started doing ads straight away, Mitsubishi, Saks Fifth Avenue, those kinds of things. That was his first taste of performing for a camera.
And there's that story about his audition for 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Showing his early knack for performing.
Yeah, the 1982 TV series. He apparently brought his guitar to the audition and just launched into this really convincing Elvis impersonation.
Really?
Yeah. It completely charmed the producer, landed him the part of the youngest brother. The sources also mentioned he was already a good tap dancer by then, too. Shows he was committed early on.
That raw talent, combined with everything he'd been through, it feels like the perfect storm for the kind of intense actor he became.
Definitely set the stage for his move into film.
Okay, let's track that move. The period from roughly 1985 to 1990. This is when he really explodes onto the scene, right? Becomes a serious critical force before he's even 20.
Yeah, the trajectory was incredibly fast. His first proper movie role was Explorers in '85. He played the nerdy kid, Wolfgang Miller.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
With Ethan Hawke.
That's it. But the real game changer was the next year, 1986. Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, an absolute classic. He was 16.
Just 16. And that film made him a household name. He became instantly synonymous with that kind of sensitive, intense teen angst.
What did critics say about him specifically in that role as Chris Chambers?
They were floored. The Washington Post said something really insightful. They said he gave the film its center of gravity.
Wow. High praise.
Huge praise. They saw the depth, the pain under the surface he brought to that character, the kid trying to escape his family's reputation.
And he talked about how much that role affected him personally, didn't he? How hard it was to shake off.
He did. He said he identified so strongly with Chris Chambers, that feeling of being trapped but wanting something better, that if he hadn't had his family to go back to.
He might have needed therapy.
Yeah, he literally said he would have probably had to see a psychiatrist. It shows how deeply he threw himself into these roles right from the start.
That intensity clearly caught people's attention. He worked with Peter Weir straight after, right? On the Mosquito Coast.
Yep, 1986 again. And talk about jumping in the deep end alongside Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren.
Heavy hitters. Yeah. What did someone like Weir make of him?
Weir had this amazing quote about him. He basically said he was obviously going to be a movie star. It's something apart from acting ability.
Something innate.
Yeah. He even said Laurence Olivier never had what River had, just this raw, magnetic quality. Interestingly, Phoenix apparently felt better about his own work in Mosquito Coast, even though it wasn't as well received as Stand By Me. Shows his own complex view of his success.
Well, that feeling of success must have been validated just 2 years later. The Oscar nomination.
Absolutely. Running on Empty, 1988, directed by Sidney Lumet, playing Danny Pope, the son of fugitives.
And he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor at 18.
18 years old. Golden Globe nomination, too. He was the 6th youngest nominee ever in that Oscar category. Suddenly, he's playing in the major leagues, recognized as a serious dramatic talent.
And there's that lovely story for the ceremony itself about his reaction when he didn't win.
Oh, yeah, his mom Arlen told that one. When Kevin Kline won for A Fish Called Wanda, apparently River instinctively started to run over to hug him.
Just pure excitement for Klein.
Exactly. Arlen said she had to physically stop him. No disappointment, just genuine happiness for another actor. It speaks volumes about his character, that lack of cynicism. He did win the National Board of Review Award for it, though, so the critics definitely recognized him.
So he's established himself in serious drama, and then he steps into one of the biggest franchises ever.
Indiana Jones. 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He plays young Indy in the opening sequence.
Working with Harrison Ford again?
Yep, and Spielberg directing. The performance was so popular, so spot on, that George Lucas actually wanted him for the TV series.
The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
That's the one. Lucas wanted him to reprise the role for TV.
But he turned it down, even though it would have been huge.
He did turn it down. And the reason why is really telling about his priorities. He'd fought hard to get out of TV early on, and he just wasn't willing to go back.
Even for Indiana Jones.
Even for Indy. He saw film as his path, his art form. He didn't want to compromise that, even for a big payday or high visibility. It showed real commitment to his own vision.
That commitment to artistic integrity,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like it ran parallel to this really intense commitment to his personal beliefs as activism,
Yeah.
which brings us to that duality again.
Exactly. That next phase, around 1991 onwards, is where you see his artistic peak coincide with this full flowering of his identity as an activist.
And the artistic peak has to be My Own Private Idaho, right? With Gus Van Sant and Keanu Reeves.
Absolutely. My Own Private Idaho in 1991 was a defining moment, a really bold avant-garde film.
He played Mike Waters, the narcoleptic hustler.
Yes, and his performance was just extraordinary. Critics called it stunningly sensitive, poignant, comic. He completely embodied this character so far removed from his own public image.
And the film itself had a big impact, didn't it? Beyond just his performance.
Huge impact. It was really groundbreaking in bringing queer stories about marginalized characters, into a more mainstream conversation. This wasn't typical Hollywood fare at all.
It cemented him as more than just a teen idol.
Oh, definitely. It showed he was a serious, boundary-pushing artist willing to take risks.
And the awards reflected that, didn't they? For Idaho.
They did. He won the Volpe Cup for Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival. That's a major international award.
Wow.
And he won the Independent Spirit Award for Best Male Lead, too. He was only 21, the second youngest ever winner in that category. It really felt like he was inheriting that mantle of sensitive, troubled anti-heroes like a modern James Dean.
Which makes it even more fascinating that, according to the sources, film wasn't even his main passion. Music was.
It's true. Music was his first love, always. He started teaching himself guitar when he was 5.
5 years old.
Yeah. And remember, when the family first moved to LA, the idea wasn't acting. It was for him and Rain to become recording artists.
So acting was almost accidental.
More like a practical necessity, he said. It paid the bills. But his heart, his real creative energy, was poured into his band.
Alika's Attic. Tell us about that. He formed it with Rain in '87.
Yep. And he was fiercely protective of its integrity. He absolutely refused to use his movie star fame to get them gigs or a record deal.
Really?
Yeah.
He wanted them to make it on their own merit.
Completely. Unless it was for charity. They did contribute a track across the way to a PETA benefit album called Tame Yourself back in '89.
So the activism tied in there too.
Definitely. And he put his money where his mouth was too. He was an early investor in the original House of Blues, Dan Aykroyd's venture. He believed in supporting live music. Even after he died, some unreleased tracks surfaced, featuring collaborations with Flea and John Frusciante from the Chili Peppers.
So he had real cred in the music world too.
He did. People respected his commitment.
And that same level of intense commitment defined his activism, which seems like it went way beyond typical celebrity causes.
Oh, it wasn't just writing a check or showing up at a gala. It was core to who he was. Many sources connect it back to his upbringing, that search for moral certainty after the chaos of the cult.
Finding purity through causes.
Something like that. Animal rights and environmentalism were his huge passions. And crucially, he'd been a strict vegan since he was 7 years old.
7? That's incredibly young to make that kind of commitment.
It really is. And he became a major voice for PETA in the late 80s, early 90s. They gave him their humanitarian award in 1992. His beliefs were absolute, no compromise.
There's that story that illustrates just how absolute they were, involving Martha Plimpton.
Ah, yes. His first serious girlfriend. They were teenagers, maybe 15, eating in a fancy restaurant in New York.
And she ordered
soft shell crabs. And River apparently just lost it, got incredibly upset, left the restaurant, and she found him outside crying.
Crying? Because she ordered crabs.
Yeah. He was genuinely heartbroken. He asked her something like, "I love you so much, why would you do that?" It wasn't an act. He felt the suffering of the animals on this deeply personal, painful level.
Wow. That's intense.
Extremely. And his environmentalism was just as intense and backed by real action.
Not just talk.
No way. He gave money to lots of organizations, sure, but he also personally bought 800 acres of endangered rainforest in Costa Rica.
He bought it himself.
Put his own money down to preserve it. That's serious commitment. He also famously turned down a big ad campaign because they wanted him to wear leather shoes.
He wouldn't even wear leather for a job.
Nope. Total adherence to his principles, even if it cost him money or opportunities. He was trying to live this perfectly pure, ethical life.
That public image, the pure activist, the brilliant actor, the clean living role model, the vegan, it makes the final chapter so much harder to understand, the hidden struggle.
It's the core tragedy, isn't it? This stark contrast between the public perception, this model of good health, as one source put it, and the private reality.
We know his relationship with Martha Plimpton ended partly because of his drug use starting back then.
Yeah, around 1989, though they stayed close friends, that was a factor.
When do the sources pinpoint the start of the more serious substance issues? Cocaine,
Yeah.
heroin.
It seems to have escalated around the time of my own private Idaho, so 1991 onwards. A period of huge artistic pressure, maybe exploring darker themes.
Right.
But Gus Van Sant, who knew him very well, offered a slightly different take in his book, Pink. He suggested that maybe alcohol was the bigger, more consistent problem for River, and the harder drugs were more occasional. Regardless, what's clear is that River was desperate to hide it. He was terrified of his image being shattered, ruining his career, letting down the causes he championed.
That pressure must have been immense.
Unimaginable, I think.
So fast forward to 1993. He's dating Samantha Mathis, his co-star from The Thing Called Love, and she was with him on that last night. Let's walk through what happened, October 30th into the 31st.
Okay. He'd just gotten back to LA after filming Dark Blood out in Utah for several weeks. Pretty isolated, quiet environment.
And coming back to LA meant?
Some suggest the sudden shift back into the Hollywood scene, the old pressures, the old connections, was just immediate and overwhelming. Reports suggest the days right before his death involved a significant drug binge with friends, including John Frusciante, cocaine and heroin. Apparently, he hadn't slept for days.
Right. And on the night of October 30th, they end up at the Viper Room on Sunset Strip, Johnny Depp's club.
Yep. He was actually supposed to perform that night with the band. P. Flea and Frusciante were in that band, too.
Okay. And during their set?
Sometime while the band was playing, reports mention it might have been during a song called Michael Stipe. Ironically, things started to go terribly wrong.
What exactly happened inside the club first?
According to Bob Forrest, who was there, River came up to him, tapped him on the shoulder, and said he felt really bad, thought he'd overdosed.
And Forrest's reaction?
Forrest apparently kind of brushed him off, saying something like, "You don't overdose and stand up and talk," because River seemed lucid. He offered to take him home, but River said no, he felt better.
But he didn't feel better. Things escalated quickly after that.
Very quickly. The next thing, there's commotion outside the club entrance. Samantha Mathis is screaming. River had collapsed on the sidewalk.
Convulsing.
Yeah, having violent seizures. His brother, Joaquin, who was only 19, made that frantic 911 call. You can hear the panic, trying to figure out if River's breathing. His sister, Rain, was trying to give him mouth-to-mouth. Just absolute chaos and horror.
Paramedics arrived, but it was too late.
They got there fast, rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, but they couldn't revive him. He was pronounced dead at 1:51 a.m. on Halloween morning.
And the cause of death?
The autopsy confirmed it. Acute combined drug intoxication. Specifically, a lethal mix of cocaine and heroin, a speedball. They also found benzodiazepines and propoxyphene, likely Valium and painkillers, in his system.
Just a devastating cocktail. The Viper Room itself became instantly notorious, didn't it?
Yeah, it became this grim landmark overnight. The club closed for a week immediately, put up a sign. Johnny Depp apparently closed it every Halloween after that as a mark of respect, until he sold his share in 2004.
Samantha Mathis spoke about it years later, didn't she? Adding some important context.
She did. She said she honestly believed he was sober during their relationship before that night. But on that specific night, she knew something was wrong. He seemed high in a way that made me feel uncomfortable.
And she had a specific idea about when the fatal dose happened.
Yes, this is crucial. She believed the heroin that killed him, the final dose that created the speedball, was taken at the Viper Room. She mentioned some kind of scuffle or altercation he had with another guy. They were both kicked out by bouncers, and she thinks it happened right around then.
Implying it was maybe an impulsive, spur-of-the-moment thing at the club, not something pre-planned.
That's what her account suggests, yes. A sudden, fatal decision in that chaotic environment.
And his mother, Arlen, she wrote that incredibly powerful letter to the press afterwards, didn't she? Trying to reclaim his narrative.
She did, in the LA Times in November '93. It was a fierce defense of him. She insisted River was not a regular drug user. He lived at home in Florida with us and was almost never a part of the club scene in Los Angeles.
She blamed the specific environment of that night.
Yeah, she argued that the excitement and energy of the Halloween nightclub and party scene were way beyond his usual experience and control. Basically saying it was a tragic lapse in an overwhelming situation, not reflective of who he really was.
But the letter went beyond just defending him.
Right.
It connected his death to his activism.
It did. It was heartbreaking. She turned it into this plea, saying she prayed his death would focus the attention of the world on how painfully the spirits of his generation are being worn down. She felt he had the whole world listening, but still felt unheard, frustrated.
She asked, what is it going to take?
Yeah, implying that if even someone like River, with his platform, couldn't get through, what hope was there? She linked it to Chernobyl, the Exxon Valdez, feeling like nothing was shaking people awake to the issues he cared about.
That sense of unfinished work, unfulfilled potential, it leads directly to thinking about his legacy and all those cinematic what-ifs.
Absolutely. When someone that talented dies that young, you inevitably think about the roles they never got to play.
And for River, the list is pretty staggering. The most immediate one was Interview with the Vampire, wasn't it?
Painfully immediate. He was supposed to start filming just 2 weeks after he died, playing Daniel Malloy, the interviewer.
Christian Slater took the role in the end.
He did. And in an incredible gesture, Slater donated his entire salary, $250,000, to River's favorite charities, Earth Save and Earth Trust.
Wow.
And the film is dedicated to River Phoenix at the end.
There's also that strange connection with Leonardo DiCaprio, isn't there? Roles that might have been River's.
It's uncanny. Sources say River was really keen on playing Jim Carroll in the Basketball Diaries back in the late 80s, carried the book around, the project stalled.
And then DiCaprio starred in the 1995 film.
Exactly. Same thing with Total Eclipse, the Rimbaud story. River was interested. DiCaprio ended up playing the part in 95.
And the biggest one of all, Titanic.
James Cameron himself said River was his original choice for Jack Dawson.
No way. Really?
Yep. The role that made DiCaprio arguably the biggest star on the planet. It just makes you think, if River had lived, the whole landscape of late 90s cinema could have been completely different.
It's mind-boggling. Any other major projects he was attached to?
Gus Van Sant had apparently convinced him to play Cleve Jones in an early version of the Harvey Milk biopic back in the early 90s. That project took years to finally get made, of course.
So the potential was just enormous. And his influence on other actors was huge too, right?
Definitely. Guys like DiCaprio himself, Jared Leto, James Franco, they've all cited him as a major influence, someone who represented authenticity, intensity.
And that story about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah, using River P as the password for their shared bank account when they were struggling actors. He was like this icon of cool, independent talent for them.
And his legacy lives on so strongly within his own family too, particularly through Joaquin.
Joaquin has been incredibly protective and honoring of his brother's memory. That Oscar speech he gave.
Quoting River's lyric.
Yeah, ending with River's words, "Run to the rescue with love and peace will follow." Just incredibly moving. It perfectly captured River's whole ethos.
And naming his own son, River.
With Rooney Mara, yeah. Naming their son River. It's a beautiful way to ensure the name and the spirit associated with it continues.
Beyond film and family, his image kind of permeated pop culture in unexpected ways too, didn't it?
It did. He had that iconic status. Brazilian musician Milton Nascimento wrote a song called River Phoenix, Letter to a Young Actor.
Okay.
Natalie Merchant's song River from Tiger Lily in 95 is explicitly about him defending him, criticizing the media feeding frenzy after his death.
Right, I remember that song.
And maybe the most surprising one, the main character, Squall Leonhardt, in the huge video game Final Fantasy VIII,
Was based on him.
visually modeled on River Phoenix by the character designer. They even gave the character River's birthday. Shows how far his image reached. So wrapping this all up, what we see is just this profound paradox. Here was someone almost desperately driven towards purity vegan at 7, using his fame only for activism against cruelty and destruction, trying to control the chaos of his past with this intense moral code.
But the pressure of maintaining that perfect image.
Exactly. That pressure, combined with the private struggles he felt he had to hide, ultimately led him down the very path of self-destruction he seemed to be fighting against externally.
It's a story of incredible achievement, the Oscar nomination, the Volpe Cup, all before 22, but also just devastatingly unfulfilled potential.
So many what-ifs.
So many. He left this huge hole in cinema. It really makes you think about that plea from his mother, Arlen. That feeling that he carried the weight of the world, felt its pain so acutely. Given that intense commitment he had to the environment, to justice, and the almost impossible pressure he clearly felt to be this perfect icon, it does raise a question, doesn't it, about fame, about society, and what responsibility we all bear when we place individuals on these pedestals, expecting perfection while they're wrestling with their own demons. It's something heavy to consider long after we finish talking about it.